We have come to a point where we are taking a look at another optimized example of a campaign sequence. In this session, just for the recap, in case you skipped forward to this particular session about this growth hacking impact strategy, let me recap again. We are taking a look at different settings in terms of the timing, the mix, and also the impact. In this particular session right now, we will take a look at reach. So how can we maximize the grabbing a larger market share in a shorter period of time? Again, to recap, if you have skipped forward to this session, this is our business model that we are taking a look at. So we have a pool of potential customers, which is fed by a growing market, and they will become the customer base through the adoption process. Now, this is not a very detailed adoption process. It doesn't show any conversion steps. In another business model, we would probably have different stages or user states where the customer is coming to our website, trying a little bit, and then entering the credit card information and then becoming a customer. So we simplified that quite significantly, but it illustrates very well what we are about to do here. The customer base then also will need to be renewed because the products or the subscription are expiring at a certain point in time, which is determined by the product life. What is important that the churn will also lead to a group of customers which are leaving the system, and they potentially draw in other customers through this word of mouth cycle, which is a positive reinforcing feedback loop. In other words, the more customers are here in this bucket, the more they will draw from this bucket. But the good news is the more customers we have in our customer base, the more they will attract other customers, which are determined by the contact rate and the adoption fraction. Now, pay a little bit attention to this section here. We also kickstart the process by starting with direct sales or direct marketing. So these are the important two elements that we will focus on in doing this session here. A little recap on the base model. So here we articulate the settings for the base model. We have a total assumed population of 1 million customers, and through the growth process, the total market, the total population will grow up to 1.4 million. And initially we have only 10, let's say, trial customers in our customer base. So we're starting out pretty much at zero here, and that is not enough to kickstart really exponential growth. You see that it takes a fairly long period of time until anything is happening at all, and then pretty late the exponential growth will kick in. The other parameters are still the same. Again, keep in mind we have added a little bit of financial magic here. So we assume that the cost per direct sale is 100 units, $100, euros, yen, or whatever, and we are paying 10 units for a referral customer, but we are only paying to a fraction of the customer's referral fee. And we assume that there's the 0.3 here means that there's a 30% uplift. So when we execute our referral campaign, it will increase the adoption fraction by 30%. So these are important assumptions which are leading to this behavior of the system. Now, the question really that we are exploring here in this session is what can we do in order to accelerate the market share and the agility so that we can move this adoption curve, which is starting pretty late and goes something like this. So here we have the customer base, here we have time on this axis. And is there a way to shift this curve pretty much here so that we can attain a certain market share or a growth of the market at a sooner period of time. The scenario that we look at will focus on basically this sector here in our prioritization matrix, where we take a look at the speed, so the time it takes to reach a maximum market share. And keep in mind that due to the nature of the system, where we have a growing market but we also have churn, it could very well be that our market is declining or our installed base is declining, and we are interested in this point here, so where we have reached the maximum market share. Let's say this would be the market share that we can attain, and so we are interested in how quickly we can get to that point. So we call this the maximum market share point, or Tmax. Here's the output of the optimized run. In this session we are not going into all the details and mechanics of how we accomplish that, but we are focusing more on what it actually means when we produce such a result. I will show in a second how we produce this result. But here you see the original curve, so this is our base run, and we also keep our reference campaign as we explained in the previous session. So this is a session that you see down here, where we executed a campaign which starts with 6 months of direct marketing. So the first 6 months we would do a direct campaign or direct selling, and then we switch to another 6 months worth of this is here, another 6 months worth of reference marketing. Now what you can see is that we are shifting the curve quite significantly towards here, and we are attaining not only this maximum market share at a much earlier point in time, but also at a higher level. So we are moving also the maximum market share here, and that is quite remarkable. In terms of the contribution margin, so this would be, let's say, monetary units in dollars or euros, we are also attaining a higher level of performance here. Even though with the optimized campaign there's a little bit of a delta, as you notice here, we have accomplished a fairly significant jump in terms of the contribution margin. The important thing to note is also down here, it comes at a price. So when we push very hard for market share and agility, of course we are spending much of our marketing reserves in the early phase, and we are risking that we are, if the project would stop here or for whatever reason, we would risk a certain downside in terms of the cost exposure that we have put in time. But if we continue the growth curve, then we would catch up, and the contribution margin would become positive at a fairly soon point in time. Now in the original base run, the contribution margin or the break-even point would be somewhere here, so much later. So we have accomplished quite a significant improvement. Now in this particular setting, and again keep in mind this applies only to the way this system was set up, so in your real world case there are different factors which would have to be considered, but here we did the following. We basically went full throttle ahead and let the direct campaign run until about this point in time. And also at the same time we started pretty much at point 0 and let the referral marketing campaign run till about this point in time. But notice that we didn't go all the way to the end of the simulation. So we found out that it didn't make sense to run the referral marketing, and also we stopped at about month 13 or so right here. So that really led us to kick the system into gear. But we drove pretty much at the full level of spending that was available, and this added, of course, cost in a linear fashion to the system, and also the referral marketing cost was immediately adding to our profit and loss statement. And again, this is driven also by the growth in the installed base. So the more people we have in our installed base, the more we can of course pay for referral marketing campaigns. But notice the interesting shape that it's following a significant growth, and then we found that it would be better to throttle down the referral marketing campaign, but let it run for some period of time until we can actually stop it. Now the interesting thing is, what does it do in terms of the improvement? And here you see the two parameters side by side. So one is the market share, and you see an overall improvement of 18%. So we moved in terms of the attainable market share from the base scenario with 71% to 83%. So that is quite a remarkable achievement. This is 12 percentage points in terms of market share. But even more important, the time it took to attain this market share dropped by 63%, down from month 34 to all the way to month 13. So in this month 13, we accomplished to hit the market share maximum. And if you remember, the curve looks something like this, and then it was gradually dropping. So this point was reached in after 13 months of the project start. But as we saw also in the curve, the risk during the first phase, so here about this first phase here, increased by a factor of 5. And that's something that we have to keep in mind. So if we are confident that we can carry out the project, then it would be prudent to actually do this project. If we don't feel that we can reasonably assume that we can get through this break-even or to this break-even period, then we should put a big question mark around this risk factor and weigh that accordingly. But at the end of the result, we have achieved a fairly high velocity business model and campaign, and by reducing not only the time, we have also optimized the spending, and so we can reallocate the spending again towards different campaigns or different other initiatives, or invent the next product. Of course, moving the curve from, let's say, something like this to here also means that when the business is declining, so when we have exhausted the market, we need to answer the question, what are we going to do at this point in time? So we need to have an answer in place, in other words, a new market, a new product, or a new innovative business model in order to keep going.